Lufthansa Group member airline Swiss has a fleet of over 90 aircraft and mainly operates out of Zurich, with a smaller operation out of Geneva. The carrier's fleet in 2025 has had some challenges and setbacks, but the airline is also starting a new and exciting chapter with the launch of Airbus A350-900 operations. And so we take a look at the Swiss fleet for today's video. And so starting off, as we always do, here are the types and quantities of aircraft as listed on planespotters.net as of early November 2025. There are 9 A220-100s, 21 A220-300s, 9 A320-200s, 11 A320neos, 3 A321-100s, 3 A321-200s, 6 A321neos, 14 A330-300s, 4 A340-300s, 1 A350-900, and finally 12 777-300ERs. Although our colleagues over at simpleflying.com put out a Swiss fleet article in 2023, we last visited the carrier on this YouTube channel back in mid-2022. At the time, the carrier had 88 aircraft and has thus had a net gain of 5. But what has actually changed over the last 3 years? Well, in terms of quantity, the A220 fleet hasn't changed, although this fleet's functionality has been under strain quite a bit. We'll get to that later on in this video. The A330-300 and 777-300ER fleets also remain unchanged. Most of the change has to do with the A320 family, as the carrier replaces older jets with the newer Neo aircraft. And so on this side of things, 2 A320-200s and 2 older generation A321s have exited the fleet, while 5 A320neos and 4 A321neos have been added. For wide-body changes, we have 1 fewer A340-300, while 1 A350-900 has joined the fleet in recent times. This is again something we'll discuss in our video. And then, still to be delivered per CH Aviation data are 5 A320neos, 3 A321neos, 9 A350-900s. Starting with the more positive and exciting news, Swiss took delivery of its very first A350-900 on October 9, 2025. This first A350-900, named Lausanne, is decorated in a special Wanderlust-themed livery and registered Hotel Bravo India Foxtrot Alpha. The jet's delivery flight from Toulouse was longer than would normally be the case, as it flew several circuits over Switzerland before landing. As you can see in the footage here, this less-than-direct flight path was arranged in order to record some beautiful B-roll footage. The flight should not have taken more than an hour and a half, but ended up taking about 4 hours on this special day. And then, as we typically see almost globally, the aircraft's arrival was marked by a water cannon salute from the airport's fire service, with scores of employees and fans watching the proceedings from the observation deck. Commenting on the A350's arrival, Jens Fellinger, the CEO of Swiss, remarked, "This aircraft represents everything we aim to be moving forward: efficient, advanced, and clearly positioned as a premium airline, from Switzerland and for Switzerland. With the A350, we're taking a huge leap forward." The jets will be used, among other things, to replace Swiss's aging fleet of Airbus A340-300 quadjets, which, according to CH Aviation, are about 22 years old on average. As part of crew familiarization and training, we can see that after the jet's arrival/delivery, it took off on many test flights on October 20th and 21st. After flying from Zurich to Taranto on the 20th, the A350 completed 7 flights out of and back into the airport. Test flights from Taranto continued the following day with 4 more sets of takeoffs and landings. The jet returned to Zurich in the late afternoon of the 21st. The aircraft's very first passenger service took place on October 25th as Swiss flight LX2152, which departed Zurich for Palma de Mallorca, a mere 90-minute service. It was noted that the flight had 233 passengers on board. At the time of making this video, the A350 is operating some short intra-Europe flights in advance of its inaugural long-haul service to Boston in late November. Among other European destinations, the jet is most often flying to Prague Airport out of its Zurich home. So that's the positive and exciting news, but what about the less positive fleet news? Well, it was disclosed in 2024 Swiss will need to install a roughly 1.5-ton weight near the back of its A330-300s to balance out the aircraft due to the installation of heavy first-class seats. According to a Swiss employee quoted anonymously, this calculation error was due to a complexity of internal processes and a lack of communication within the Lufthansa Group when planning new cabins. It's not the end of the world, but it is rather embarrassing for the carrier, especially if they want to be highlighting any sort of sustainability initiatives. But that's far from the worst issue with the Swiss fleet. Indeed, the carrier announced in late October 2025 that it had taken the drastic decision of grounding its entire Airbus A350-100 fleet amid ongoing engine issues with Pratt & Whitney geared turbofans. The carrier has operated the A320 the longest, as it was the launch customer for the type back in 2016, when it was still known as the Bombardier CS100. The carrier has opted to withdraw its A320-100s from service for at least 18 months, with any serviceable engines being fitted on the larger A320-300s instead. The move makes sense considering the increased capacity of the -300s, allowing for versatility in terms of passengers. Of course, the one thing the A320-300s can't do that the -100s can is serve London City Airport with its steep approach and shorter runway. And so, for Swiss to continue serving the airport without reducing frequencies, its Embraer E190-E2s and E195-E2s have replaced any A320 iterations that were on the schedule. One way Swiss has had to cope with unavailable A320s and their unavailable engines is to strike an arrangement with Latvia's Air Baltic and its A320-300s to cover some routes in the Swiss network. This wet lease arrangement has been ongoing since about 2022. The wet lease deal with Air Baltic is somewhat fleet news, but expanding further on this arrangement, it's worth noting that not everyone has been happy with the deal. Employees and the union that represents them say that such wet lease agreements allow companies to employ foreign workers in Switzerland at lower wages without observing the relevant protections. As you can imagine, the wages paid to Swiss crews are higher than what Latvian carrier Air Baltic pays its workers. Of course, a big factor at play is that there's a significant cost of living difference between the two countries. The Swiss cabin crew union, known as CAPAS, has been fighting the wet lease arrangement for some time. The latest development is that the Zurich Department of Economic Affairs has ruled that it does not see any violation of the law. Bluewind.ch notes CAPAS is critical of the decision, calling it a quote-unquote dangerous precedent that opens the door to wage dumping. With wet lease arrangements being quite standard practice across the aviation industry, it's hard to see the union getting its way. But there's your look at the Swiss fleet in 2025. What do you think of the state of this carrier in late 2025? Let us know by leaving a comment. In addition to our daily YouTube videos, Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles and a podcast every week. Visit simpleflying.com.